Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another live stream of Shadowverse. Today is Friday, the 13th of November. Spooky, as it were. Starting really late today. I will just say for the accountability section, I started off with the smallest of intentions to work on my server yesterday just to get the email into the encryption system I had set up running on CentOS, which with security enhanced Linux enabled and enforcing by default, became just such a nightmare, frankly. And this is what I've always heard about security enforced Linux, is that it is this idea that the NSA brought out, and in theory it is smart, but in practicality it is like just not efficient or effective for an average user. Although maybe an average user doesn't ever run into it. There's a Microsoft version of it too that's not enabled by default for the exact same reasons, because it just sandboxes basically everything from everything else, which just doesn't really work for most people. Here, I'm not going to be able to play a private match, so I'm going to have to re-roll this almost certainly. Havencraft, Bloodcraft, and 3 Shadowcraft or Portalcraft victories, and just 2 victories in general. And we need to play Havencraft and Bloodcraft anyways, so that lines up very nicely. To get these 2 extra animated cards that we're gonna get for these couple of weeks, or these 6 days. So yeah, I was just gonna set up the email, and then at some point, I made some small tweak, from what I recall, and I think it really was just like an incredibly small tweak that managed to just break all of the darker server setups that I had. In fact, or at least it seemed that way. I think I probably was not figuring out what the real problem was until much later. I'm not sure I even have it fully figured out, but at the end of the day, it kind of just deleted everything all again, and this is the problem. I did realize that I wasn't installing the stable version of Nextcloud, which, yeah, so all of my Docker Compose scripts, I'm gonna see if I can go and say, hey, install the stable versions of these instead of the latest versions, because that could be part of the problem. There is definitely a desire here to try and get more stability out of these systems. It's nice in theory to have in theory it's nice to have the idea around around using Docker to automate the process of building servers and setting up servers. That's fine, but in the end of the day, we need also to have stability. Maisie Red Riding Hood. Interesting. Seems like we're getting more art for older cards a lot of times than these, or it's just there's a ridiculous amount of art in them. Of course, they're all censored at this point, even in the Japanese version, as they're trying to target a younger audience. Which maybe they've got some player feedback on that too. Maybe they got the numbers to prove that kids play these collectible card games more than anybody. Although at a certain point, if you have a game like Shadowverse that has slightly lewd art,